Great. Good morning. Welcome to the Joint Transit Technical Advisory Committee. Before we get started, I just want to talk about a couple items on the agenda. Chris Barney had two presentations, item number 5, the comprehensive transportation plan update, and the item 6, the SB 743 BMT mitigation banking and exchange program update. He's out, so we're actually just gonna push those off until next month. The information is in your packet if you want to preview it, but we won't be discussing this today.
That was item 5.
5 and 6.
Okay.
Yeah. So with that, let's go ahead and do introductions in the room. They with SCTA, RCPA. That's it.
Jared Hall, Transit Manager, Petaluma Transit.
Stephen Schmitz with Sonoma County Transit.
Steph Britt, SCTA, RCPA. Rachel Aid with Santa Rosa City Bus.
Owen Christofferson with SMART.
All right, and then on the Zoom, why don't we start with SCTA, RCPA staff?
Ross Clendedham, SCTA, RCPA.
Margot Kanya, Senior Transportation Planner, SCTA, RCPA.
John Agaz, Senior over Programming and Projects, SCTA, RCPA.
All right, and then let's pass it over to Charles.
All right, Charles Smith, Sonoma County Transit.
And Frederick.
Yes, good morning. I'm Frederick Schumer with Caltrans. Sonoma County is now my liaison county for Caltrans, so I thought I'd pop in and see what's going on with transit.
Great, thank you. Welcome. All right, I can't see very far, so if you haven't introduced yourself, please jump in and do so.
Yeah, Jacob Brown with Golden Gate.
And then also we have Emily Betts from SMART and Zoe Unruh from SMART. And then we got David Leitman, a member of the public.
Okay, excellent. And I did hear that David Davenport is on his way, but running a little bit late. I'm holding a game. All right, let's go to item number 2, public comment on items not on the agenda. Is there any public comment? All right, hearing none, we'll move over to item number 3, approval of the meeting notes from May 8th. We did not have a June meeting, so this is from the last meeting.
Motion approval.
I'll second.
All right, any opposed? All right, great. And so the next item on the agenda is the Go Sonoma draft transit fare free policy statement.
Thanks, Dina.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead and take it. Hi, everybody. Good morning. We're bringing this item to the Transit TAC for consideration and recommendation to the board and the other advisory committees. So this is an item for your consideration. We're trying to better define the fare-free program. It was mentioned in the recently approved Go Sonoma Strategic Implementation Plan. As you know, the Go Sonoma Act is the quarter-cent sales tax that was an extension of our Measure M sales tax. It will start up at the beginning of April in 2025, and we will begin collection on April 1st, but we don't expect disbursements to start until probably the following quarter, because it'll take a while to collect the revenue before we can actually disperse it. So we're looking at disbursements in the fall quarter of 25-26. With that, hopefully everybody's had a chance to look at the staff report that's in your agenda packet, but if not, let me just go through a couple of things. As I mentioned, there was some mention of the fare-free policy in the strategic implementation plan. And we are proposing some slight modifications to that policy in order to better define how the funds will be dispersed. So the staff report that's included in your agenda packet shows what's currently in the strategic implementation plan. And then just below that, it shows the proposed language. So the new language is underlined, and then there are some words that have been struck through in order to provide clarification. So we are essentially saying that 18% of the measure, and this is, we're not changing anything, we're just better defining how it rests in the strategic implementation plan. So 18% of the measure is identified for Go Sonoma Transit. That is for the apportionment program. And then there is an additional 2% that is identified for the Fare Free program. And we will be dispersing that in addition to the apportionment program. We will also need to, because it's different from the apportionment program, because it is based on reimbursement, we will be providing an additional cooperative agreement. All three of the operators, the bus operators, have already received the draft Go Sonoma Transit apportionment program cooperative agreement to go to your various councils and board. And so this would be a cooperative agreement in addition, just for that 2%. And it would be reimbursement, and it would be based on the same ratio that identifies what your apportionment is. So of that 2%, you'll get the proportion that is your formula amount that will be available to you for reimbursement. So you'll submit invoices for the Fare Free program and then be reimbursed up to your apportionment formula amount of that 2%. And I apologize if that's not if that's not super clear. I hope it's clear in the staff report. I'm seeing Rachel nod, so that's good. Okay, great. So with that, hopefully I can open it up to questions right now, but staff is requesting that you guys review and then provide a recommendation for approval of these slight modifications to the policy. And then we will take that to probably the TAC just as an informational item, and then also to the Citizens Advisory Committee for also a recommendation to the board for approval, since they have the task of oversight of the measure itself, the Citizens Advisory Committee does. And then we will ask the board for approval. And then the policy will be approved by resolution, and then we will amend the policy into the recently approved strategic implementation plan when we do the next update. And I turn it back over to you, Dana.
Thank you, Shauna. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I had a couple questions. Thanks, Shauna, that was helpful. So, could you talk a bit more about the mechanism for the invoicing, the reimbursement? So is it a matter of all the transit operators provide ridership, and based on the total pie, it gets split out amongst that? Or are we sending you an invoice for, say, X number of riders times the standard fare for adults, and then you reimburse based on that?
So my expectation is that you will have, so of the 2%, you will have an amount that is identified for your operator, for your agency, and then you will provide us expenditures for whatever it takes. And I think per rider is an appropriate way to do that. Having never done this before, we're kind of winging it, but I think that we may be able to better define it as we develop the cooperative agreements. If this is something that the transit TAC wants defined, then we can include that requirement, and whatever and I'm absolutely happy to take recommendation on this. How you feel would best be able to provide information for us, because really what it's about is we're reimbursing you for expenditures that you've already made. So just being able to substantiate those expenditures in an invoice that makes sense for anybody who's looking at it. And if you're telling me that, you know, per writer is best, then that works for us. I don't know if I'm answering your question, Jared. I apologize. I'm not a transit operator, so I'm not really.
I think, so if I can jump in, so what I think this says, and this might answer your question, is that the 2% will get divided up by population, as we do with the regular Measure M's Sonoma money for operations. So
That's right.
get its population-based share, and then you can bill up to that amount for ridership that's fare free that you're getting reambused for lost revenue. So does that answer what you're
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is what I was trying to say. I apologize. I was getting a little bit deeper into the mechanics of it, I think, or
Yeah, well,
what the actual invoices will look like.
Right, but I mean, I think that's a good question, and I mean, I do think, just for my part, I think doing it by rider is the simplest and easiest thing, right? We can, each system determines what the lost fare per rider is, depending on what the program is, right? Whether it's a youth program or whatever it might be. And then we document that for the quarter or whatever the period of reimbursement is and send that to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
that
I think
works.
that's how City Bus has done it for the, like when you were using the TFCA
TFCA,
fund,
yes,
for,
and that's how we're
for the
doing it
youth
with the
program,
county.
so.
Program right now, so.
What's unclear to me is there gonna be a cap per operator, or is there a cap of the overall amount?
So there's 2% of the measure. And so that'll be divided. I guess we'll probably, I don't know if we'll be able to estimate that or not, but probably when we do our annual estimates, we'll probably identify that amount for you to be able to budget.
Right.
And then, as Rachel was saying in it, and as I said earlier, you'll have your apportionment amount. So I believe Sonoma County Transit gets something like 49%, I think, of the measure. That's your apportionment formula. I mean, 49% of the
Population.
funding of the transit funding, right? We have 18%. You guys used to have less than that, but now you're getting 18% of the overall measure. And then that is divided 49% to Sonoma County Transit. And I don't know exactly what the
35 to City Bus, yeah.
something like that. Yeah. And then the remainder to Petaluma Transit. So those amounts will be identified for the 18%. They will also be identified for the 2%, right? So that 2% will be sectioned off and kept in an account. And then you guys will submit reimbursement up to the amount that you are allowed per your formula.
No.
And then if you don't spend it all, I'm assuming that you all will, but if you don't, then anything that's left over gets put back into the 18% account and then dispersed among all of the transit operators. That's what this policy is saying.
Sean, I know we're predicting a little bit out, a year or so out, but how big approximately ballpark do you anticipate the 2% pot being?
I don't have that amount right now. I apologize. I don't have it.
All right, about. Yeah, I'd be curious to know whenever we.
Yeah.
Never got it. I will say, you know, I did the back of the napkin for City Bus just based on the overall measure projection for like the first year. And, you know, I think one challenge, the youth program has been so successful that actually the 2% won't cover the current subsidy for that program alone. So I think that's a challenge. I mean, it will go a long way and it's super appreciated because that's the only way we're going to get to making that program permanent and stable. But yeah, that will be, and I know Brian sort of raised that question too about, you know, how we could fill the gap for these fare free programs that we want to sustain, but they're so successful that there's quite a bit of lost fare revenue associated with that.
Because I believe the climate resiliency grant we have that's helping to fund the K-12 now runs through 2025. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
And a year from.
Yeah,
now.
it is.
Okay.
So you guys are comfortable with the apportionment as opposed to just having it open and requesting reimbursement until all of us reach that cap?
I think it'll be easier to plan if we know in advance what
your
our
apportionment is.
apportionment,
Mm.
I don't know, do you? If you
I mean,
have
that's
another
just something that
view-
Brian brought up, is that this is another way to approach it. It's just not to have it tied to an apportionment number, but just to have the overall thing be open amongst the three operators, and then we submit reimbursements until it's gone. And
But what if
there's
you
no
get
cap,
halfway through
there's
a
no
year?
cap per operator.
Yeah,
Even though the funding pot's obviously going to be capped at 2%.
Yeah, the funding pot would be capped at 2%, but not per operator.
I mean, I guess I'm fine to what's proposed, the apportionment, and we do it. I think that's kind of the most straightforward, the simplest way, the best way to be assured of how much money we're all getting and receiving. But that's kind of my 2 cents on it.
Allows you to budget.
my concern with, yeah, what Brian's thinking, and I get why, like, I get why that would be an attractive approach too, but. We're all gonna be maxing out, we know our current fare-free programs cost more than will be coming in from this 2%, so my fear is we get 8 months into the year. And maybe you guys have had a real huge amount of right, you know, like, we could run out of money.
Yeah,
And not know what part of the year that's gonna hit. I'd sort of rather know with more certainty up front, so I can figure out, oh, do I need to leverage LC top or TFC or some other source to be able to fill that gap?
Mhm.
I don't know.
And I don't think that so I think we're just providing the specificity in the policy, but I think it was always intended that the funds would be distributed by apportionment share formula. I mean, it wasn't specified, which is why we're putting it in there, but I think the assumption is that it would always be that way in order to be fair. So that you could
say it's just
plan.
inflation or population and ridership.
It's I think it's population, and I mean, it's whatever we're using for the apportionment program right now. So the same Measure M formula that you're using, that's the formula that we will use for Go Sonoma.
Yeah, so it's a service area population.
I get it. Yeah, that makes sense.
So motion approved. You want, it's a formal action, right? We're looking for-
This is an action item, right? Sorry.
It is an action item, yes, please.
Okay.
To clarify, Go Sonoma is part of Measure M, and that's why local service on regional service, local riders and regional services excluded. Correct.
That's correct. Go Sonoma is a continuation of the Measure M sales tax.
Just wanted to confirm if I get a question.
Yeah, so just a,
How come Golden Gate's the only one that doesn't offer free rides in Sonoma County?
Yeah.
yeah, so this is included as in the new measure that's starting next, or we'll start collecting funding
Right.
next spring.
Discussion item.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, it is, okay.
It is a discussion item. But
I'm
yeah,
sorry, my staff report says action item.
okay, sorry about that. The agenda says discussion, the staff report says action item. I think that we can go ahead and take action on this. And that is what you're looking for, right? To move it on to the act and then the CAC.
Exactly, yes, please, and the board.
Should we do a final call for questions?
Yeah, let's, are there any other questions before we make a motion on this? Or comments? All right,
All right, then I'll make a motion to approve.
thank you. Second, okay. So motion from Jared and second from Rachel. Any opposed? All right, thank you. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Good job.
All right, so going down, we are postponing items 5 and 6 and moving on to item 7. I am just going to bring this up. I think all of you have seen this presentation on the integrated transit service plan at least once. So I'm gonna move through it really quickly and really mostly, to open it up for discussion. And bring it to this committee for process, even though all of you have been very involved in the process and have seen it several times. Or at least once, right? At least one other meeting. So this presentation really kind of serves as an executive summary of the Integrated Transit Service Plan report. The report has a lot more detail, and I'm just gonna go through a few highlights in the presentation. So, the kind of vision for the plan was to improve mobility for riders in Sonoma County. And really the intention and the goal of the plan was to identify opportunities for reducing duplication of service to allow for reallocation of resources for improved service. We worked on this plan in close collaboration with Sonoma County Transit, Santa Rosa City Bus, Petaluma Transit. We also involved Golden Gate and SMART, as there is a regional service component of this as well. So why is transit integration so important? You all know many of the reasons, but a few things highlighted here is just that Sonoma County has a very large internal commute, and 90% of all the trips start and end within the county. The portion that don't are the longer trips and make up a good portion of our countywide VMT. So it's important to look both locally and regionally. And we have a very large population that is dependent on transit and have room for improvement of mobility. This slide just shows trends in transit ridership. We see a very good recovery from the pandemic downturn and kind of continuation of that growth. I'm going to kind of skip through some of the outreach, but we did have Nelson Nygaard, as well as transit operators and SCTA, go out and talk to folks and distribute surveys at events, as well as on board all of the transit operators in Sonoma County. We learned a lot from that about just kind of general satisfaction of transit and concerns. I think that a lot of what we heard was things that you all hear often. Buses don't run early enough or late enough or often enough, and sometimes the waits are too long. So that's no surprise here. We acknowledge that there are several efforts going on regionally, and that MTC is leading, and have identified within the recommendations in the plan where MTC is taking the lead, and where, and then other elements that make more sense for to be addressed locally between operators in Sonoma County. So, there's 26 recommendations in the report, plus there are corridor alternatives and some microtransit recommendations, looking at kind of areas that have the propensity to be successful for microtransit. The kind of high level recommendations include improving data collection and information management is really a big one that we found was a challenge through development of the plan. Being able to have the data and consistent data to really do that regional planning work. Overlapping fixed route corridors, develop alternatives to reduce duplication of service on various corridors. With the intention to, be able to free up some of those service hours, to increase frequencies elsewhere. There are a number of fixed route recommendations that include other topics such as fare coordination, rider information, and general organizational issues. And then there's also some recommendations that address paratransit, and as I mentioned earlier, microtransit propensity zones. The kind of highway north-south corridor along and adjacent to Highway 101 came up as a very high priority. So not a surprise, it's where most of the population is within Sonoma County, and it's also where there's the most overlapping service. But it really has shown a potential to improve mobility for riders the most. There was some analysis done kind of looking at various travel options where there is overlapping service and how we may be able to improve connections to regional service to offer shorter travel times. And different options that could be available to improve mobility in that and service in the corridor. So kind of the high level next steps and recommendations for looking at this corridor are to do additional data collection, including getting all of the stop level ridership and origin destination data, doing the detailed planning work, and refining the initial concepts and alternatives that are in the plan based on this new data, and then of course to conduct public outreach to kind of test support for some of the different alternatives that are mentioned. A lot of this work, or some of this work, kind of with the regional outlook, will be addressed in mascots, but there's also kind of the more local element that we have some work to do on as well. The report has a lot of other information about high priorities. Again, improving data availability and uniformity is really important to doing any sort of regional multi-agency planning effort. And just kind of overview, this presentation and the report went to the SCTA RCPA board in June, as well as the Petaluma's Transit Advisory Committee. And yesterday was on the Board of Supervisors agenda, and there'll be a presentation to the Santa Rosa City Council on June 23rd.
July 23rd?
Sorry, July 23rd. We are in July already. And the next steps are that, we are working with the 3 local bus operators on refining a work plan that both has elements from the previous study, the Transit Integration Efficiency Study, as well as the Integrated Transit Service Plan, and really refining a more near-term work plan that the intention is to attach that to an MOU, kind of committing the agencies to take the next steps on this work. So that is kind of the highlights and what I want to share today. I'll open up for any questions or comments.
I would just say thanks for putting this together. It's a great presentation. We're looking forward to the continued collaboration work. And thanks, Dana, for you and the team from Nelson Nygaard coming to present before the Transit Advisory Committee. It's well received, and we heard great feedback on it. So, looking forward to it.
Thank you. All right, and then if anybody has anything kind of like outside of the integrated transit service plan, on the Sonoma County integration work, happy to hear that now as well.
Coordination wise.
Yeah, coordination wise, we also have the regional meetings report out where kind of the regional work can be discussed, but
Maybe a good reminder for Transit App Royale. Of
Yeah.
course, we all partnered on that. So anyone out there riding transit, you now, if you're a Sonoma County area geographically bus rider, you get free access to Transit App Royale. So that's up and running. That's been successful.
thank you. Have you heard any feedback from riders or, yeah, on the transit app or?
Anecdotally, the ones that ride and use it, yes, they like it. We haven't done any sort of quantifiable survey or things like how many people who ride know about it and use it. I don't know if anyone else has. It's going better feedback. Okay.
No news is good news, right?
Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, we do have access to, see how many people are using it and opening it.
Yeah, right.
But it's still fairly fresh, so at some point we'll kind of look at all those numbers and
Yeah, the data.
see if it's growing and.
Yep.
Great. All right, this is just a discussion item. Is there any public comment on this item? All right, then we'll move on to the regional meetings report out. And I'll just open it up. We want to go around the room or the screen. Any notable
Let's see who's on.
updates?
I can see a few things.
Great.
On Friday, June 28th, we did an excursion with the consultant for the mascot study. So we had a good tour of from Larkspur to Petaluma. And then Golden Gate team split off after Petaluma. I don't know what you guys were up to after Petaluma. But I think there was some interest in staying locally and maybe going to Santa Rosa. But I thought it was pretty good overall to see how all the buses and the trains are working currently in the corridor. And well, before I move on to other items, and Jared, you were there for at least starting in Petaluma. I don't know if you have anything to add.
It was great to meet the team. We met the new consultants who's going to be leading on Nelson Nygaard. Thomas, was that his name?
Yes.
You would know his last name?
Whitney.
Thomas Whitman, yes. It was great to meet him. Yeah, I think after Petaluma, generally that was the last stop. Most people kind of went their own way after that. And then Kathleen, who's kind of the staff project manager, continued to meet with Thomas, talk a bit more at that point about the projects. But yeah, very excited.
It was great. And you came out on your day off. Let's see, for Transit 2050 plus, MTC recently held a round of meetings with all of the different counties. For the regional operators, they had a cutoff of 5+ counties. I think next time I'll ask for a cutoff of 4+ counties, so I don't have to go to 4 of the meetings. But that's the regional draft network version 1.1 or whatever it's called. And there'll be another edit, I think, later this summer. So there's still some questions around the kind of the black box that is some of the scoring and how that lifts certain projects up in the other projects. I would say that that's more of an issue in some places in the East Bay in particular, and not so much in the North Bay. But I'm sure there's questions surrounding what specifically makes a project score better than another when it's in the same corridor, and that's been the struggle with this particular project, is really getting clarity around that. And I think it might be the next iteration of Plan Bay area where we get a better resolution to that question, just because of the accelerated timeline for 2050 plus. It's been a challenge. And I think in the next iteration we'll probably have a more comprehensive like network assessment, which there is a network assessment component to Transit 2050 plus, but it's not really as robust as we initially expected. And then on regional mapping and wayfinding, let's see, it's been a while since we met here, but we had call it a workshop at BART headquarters in Oakland. And Matthew was there from City Bus, and Melanie and I were there from Golden Gate. I think Emily was there from Smart. And there's probably somebody else that I'm forgetting. I don't know if anyone else came down now. So that was good to see. I know the pilot's supposed to kick off at El Cerrito del Norte and at Santa Rosa Transit Mall late summer. Do you, well,
For
what's
us,
the
because of our,
construction time?
yeah, I was gonna provide that update. Yeah, right after Labor Day. So their plan is to come and install kind of towards the tail end of that project. So when we move back in mid-fall, the prototypes will be up. That's the plan,
Sounds
as far
good.
as I know.
And then there's been an interest in doing like another round of, I'll call them pilots. And so I think there's gonna be roughly one per county. Maybe, I think it's 7 more beyond the 2. So I don't know if Sonoma County will get another one, but it sounds like Berrien County might get one at Larkspur Ferry Terminal / Mart Station. Let's see. I think that's all I have on regional meetings, but there's so many to keep track of.
Yeah. I just had one quick add on the Transit 2050 plus, since you covered that, David. So one question we had that I think Chris Barney asked on our behalf was, in the presentation that was sent out regarding the draft network and performance assessment, there was a map of proposed BRT and LRT projects, and there was nothing in, I think there was nothing in Sonoma County. And you know, nested within our Sonoma County bus frequency improvement project are some rapid bus improvements on a couple Santa Rosa corridors. And so we just wanted to make sure those hadn't somehow dropped out or not been captured. And Kara got back to us and just clarified that map, that graphic only shows multi-travel shed BRT, LRT projects. And so, yes, they're aware of any projects that are single travel sheds. So I don't know if there's anything in, you know, in other parts of Sonoma County, but I did want to clarify, they got back to us and they're going to put a note on that graphic just to make it clear that it's not like there's no BRT or rapid bus being considered in Sonoma County. It's just, you know, not crossing multiple travel sheds. So I just wanted to add
And that gets to a fundamental issue we've had with the project, which,
yeah,
you know, originally we were asked to kind of design like a node network, and then they just ended up building travel sheds around that.
yeah,
And so Sonoma County ended up with one travel shed, which was really less than useful for most transit planning purposes.
sure.
So a lot of things that you would expect to be highlighted in all of these graphics and presentations just kind of
Drop off.
disappear or off,
Yeah.
Mhm.
unfortunately, but lessons learned for next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that communication is really important, right? When they go out with those maps to
Mhm, mhm.
make sure people are aware of what's actually there.
Yeah.
And yeah, some of the previous drafts were even more muddled, so
Mhm.
it's been a process, and it's better than where we were, still room for improvement. I will say the good news is, even though Transit 2050 Plus has a lot of buried data that I think we would all love to have access to, the good news is we were able to tack on a work order for mascots
Yeah.
to dive into those travel sheds in more detail. And Kathleen was able to get almost all of the travel sheds that we wanted. I think 2 ended up falling off that were a little bit further off the Highway 101 corridor, like the San Anselmo / Ross Valley and Sebastopol.
Mhm.
But you know, we're getting there.
That's great. That's great.
And then we had a few meetings related to mascot. I think you touched on those a bit. We have the executive group with all the transit managers meeting. We met on June 6th and we'll meet again on July 19th. Some of the highlights from the last meeting we had are an update on Transit 2050. Of course, the major region-wide study that MTC is leading. So we received an update on that. We talked about the transit priority toolkit. We talked about the planning scope of work that you referenced that's getting off the ground now. Smart talked a little about bus bridge service, things along those lines. And then I think there was a meeting prior to that. We also got an update from MTC on their regional zero emission bus plan. Of course, there's also the planning subcommittee, the marketing subcommittee, and the finance subcommittee that continue to meet. The finance one has the next meeting on July 17th. Anything on those I'm missing? Rachel, chair of the executive.
No, thank you. No, I think that covers it. And those are just the meetings that we made up. We haven't even covered all the other amazing meetings, but yes.
I know
Thanks, Jared.
MTC has started some like work on the financial component. I'm not too directly involved in the financial side of things other than
Yeah,
asking, when they ask me things about UZAs and stuff.
right.
So I know there's, and we talk about black boxes, that whole FTA. funding.
5307
Yeah.
formula, yeah. That's fine. Thanks, Jared.
Thanks. All right, any other regional meeting updates?
I feel like there was something for Clipper too, but
Hmm.
I know September is when they're supposed to debut their new timeline, but I don't know if there's any other major notes.
Yeah.
We should look out for a timeline for Clipper 2.0.
Question is, when in 2025 will it launch?
Mhm.
So cool.
Assuming it's 2020.
All right, well, if there's nothing else here, let's move on to operator updates. Would you like to go first, Jerry?
Yeah, sure. By the way, I can't see, is Maria, we know Maria's on.
I did not see her.
Okay. So I'll start with a highlight then. I'll take some of her thunder. Is Fare Free, of course, is a big one. We
Mhm.
launched that on July 1st. We're very excited about that. So we've been doing a lot of work on that, as you can imagine, over the past few weeks. Maria's been doing a great job with outreach, getting it out there for the newspapers. We've gotten good coverage.
Really good press.
Oh, yeah. I've
Oh,
all
really
the
good,
pieces And pickups of it so far.
MTC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the work continues. We're through the lion's share of that outreach, but still more ongoing. So please help spread the word. Of course, any service is free, fixed route, paratransit. We're excited about that. Microtransit, we're coming to the final stages with that. We're at the point where we're doing the marketing and the branding, getting that dialed in. Hoping to launch that in approximately 2 months, but getting close to the finishing line on that as well. For our ridership, our May ridership was up 33% compared to May 2023. Paratransit was up 27% compared to May of the prior year. Our fixed route buses, we're continuing to work on those, still on schedule to receive those 4 electric buses next February. And I think that's about it for us.
I think I'm next, yeah. So for Sonoma County Transit, we're up 22% over last year to date. And same May from last year, we're up about 20%. So that's looking good. We just received within the last week 6 new Starcraft paratransit cutaways. So that's going to help to rejuvenate our older fleet on the paratransit side. We continue to make progress on our electric charging expansion project, and so that's moving along well. Unfortunately, we found out from Proterra, which is now Phoenix EV, that they're not going to be able to get us our new buses by December, and that's probably another 6 months beyond that. So not real excited about that news. So we are moving forward with probably going to our board within the next month or so to get some additional Gillick buses, and they're going to be here 25, 26. So we're going to have to limp along here the next year or so with the rest of you.
Are they electric Gilligs?
Yeah.
We do have buses for lease if you're interested.
And then on the paratransit side, I know we're up. I don't have any data for you on that, but we're also up on the paratransit side for ridership. I think that's about it for Sonoma County Transit. Thanks.
Thanks. All right, David, do you want to give an update on Golden Gate?
Yes, I have several items to discuss. I will start with traffic and ridership news. Bridge traffic for the month of May, since we don't have June data yet, officially closed out. May 2024 bridge traffic total volume is the highest it's been since the pandemic started, which is good. Still a long way off from where we'd like to be, still down about 14% compared to a pre-COVID normal, but it is an upward trajectory. Double-edged sword, not a fan of traffic, but it's what pays the bills for our agency, so it is what it is. Bus ridership for the month of May is up 8% compared to May of last year, so it still continues to be an upward trend. It's not the busiest month we've had since COVID, but it's pretty close. I think August 2023 was our highest ridership month, but it's very, very close to meeting that. You know, May has a holiday in it, August doesn't, so it's the little things that can make that difference. On the ferry side of things, May compared to May of last year, 2024 to 2023, ridership's up 22%. So we're continuing to see a steep upward trend on ferry, which is good. It's still not beating last summer's high back in July and August. And that has a lot to do with traffic at Angel Island and Sausalito tourism traffic. So if that summer spike continues, I would expect the summer to be our best since COVID. So good to see that. We're at the point where if we see that spike in summer, our summer ferry traffic volume, or ridership volume rather, sorry, will be as high as our like winter pre-COVID. So that'll be very nice when we hit that point. So fingers crossed. I don't have paratransit numbers off the top of my head, but the fewer riders we have, the better, because it's so expensive to run. But I don't think that's the case. We had our fare change on July 1st. Sonoma local fares did not go up. They remained the same. The inter-county fares generally went up a quarter per category. And then of course the discount is 12.5 cents on average or something like that. Our next service change will be on August 11th, which is the regional sign-up date weekend. No changes to our ferry service. A lot of changes for bus. I think I might have mentioned some of this before, but for Route 101, we are expanding service between Novato and San Francisco to half-hourly during weekday peaks in both directions. And we are adding a round trip on Route 172, which is our Sonoma County commute route. So we'll be back up to 7 trips out of Santa Rosa on that commute service. We still have that 7 includes the 2 express trips. And then we still have the 2 trips out of Petaluma on Route 164 at the moment. And then we're making some other changes just down in Marin County. The big change for Route 101, actually for all of our regional routes, is a shift in when buses run out of San Rafael Transit Center, which pulls time they need. So it's about a 15-minute shift. So most of the times in and out of Sonoma County will be 15 minutes later. And for connections to the East Bay, we had to rewrite the Route 580 schedule to get everything to work. So that schedule is substantially different. Everything else is just about a 15-minute shift. Let's see. Recently submitted a request for a bus stop in Santa
I was
Rosa.
gonna be seeing you today. I was like, we gotta talk about this. Yeah.
Which is a nice to have. There's been some interest since our buses basically go past Railroad Square area there is a bus stop in the northbound direction that City Bus currently uses that we could serve, but we don't want to serve it unless we also have a southbound companion stop. And that's a little trickier. But if we can get it, that would be wonderful. And let's see. Something else that I've been in communication with you all on is our desire to shift to just Clipper only for interagency transfers when Clipper 2.0 starts. Just because that's a much better transfer program than our current cash-based ones overall for our system in Sonoma County. Yeah, I guess it's still 250 versus 150, or I guess maybe it'll be 275 by the time it's implemented, depending on what Muni does. But there's a much higher incentive to direct people to Clipper, especially in systems like Muni, where right now the transfer is 50 cents or something like that. So it's kind of a joke. But versus 250 or 275. So I've gotten agreement from most of our connecting operators. Still need to hear from City Bus officially.
Yeah.
And then AC Transit. And otherwise everybody else is on board with the change for us.
So this might be a separate conversation too, but just to clarify, so the cash rider, so someone transferring from City Bus, say to Golden Gate using cash would no longer receive a transfer discount.
Right, yeah, we would no longer take the transfer, the other company.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't love it. We should probably talk more offline, but I don't love it because I feel like the cash riders would be on Clipper if they could be kind of, because there's already an incentive built in, so it sort of feels like
Yeah,
a double whammy. For the
well,
cash riders.
you know, kind of our position has been that and this is, we have change cards on our fare box as well, which is
Yeah.
uncommon in the industry.
Yeah.
Really. And our position, yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. Don't do that. Is
Yeah.
our position is with Clipper 2.0, there's open payment.
Mhm.
And so if you have a credit or a debit card in the new system, there's also that flexibility that's currently absent from the system. Which, you know, I know there's, you know, questions around banked versus unbanked.
Yeah. That's kind of what the folks I'm thinking of.
Right. Yeah, but the issue for us is it's difficult to maintain different policies with
Yeah.
6 or 7 different agencies. And the numbers are just so low, like across Sonoma County, it's only about 3 people a day.
Mhm.
And across our East Bay connections, it's only about 3 people per day.
Mhm.
And so that's, you know, 3 agencies per. So that's, you know, on average, 1 per operator per day, although it's probably more like 2 from City Bus, 1 from Sonoma County, 0 from Petaluma, most likely. But because you're free. But it's just such a low number that it's kind of like a rounding error for us, and it's a lot of management headache.
Okay.
Plus, it's the new Clipper system is just a $250 discount is just so good that it's like really that really is a meaningful incentive. That's an additional $1 off
Right.
compared to the current offer.
Right.
So that's kind of our perspective there.
Yeah, no,
we can
that's
talk about it
helpful.
more.
Yeah, I'll follow up with you, but I that's helpful to hear more about the rationale.
And it's worth talking because we are probably the highest for Sonoma County, even though it's a very low number. It's definitely our 2 agencies.
It's
for
the
us
highest
are-
of the low.
Yeah, exactly.
All
It
right.
reminds me of when we did the Nelson Nygaard was discussing the interagency transfers, and he's like, it seems so low, and I'm like, well, it's actually higher than I expected to see. Not that people aren't doing it, but they're not doing it with the fair media that
we're
it's
trying
designed to use.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's where we are with the CAT transfer thing. We plan on going to the board this fall, our board this fall, to approve. We have to approve something related to Clipper 2.0, so that'll just be part of the package. And we're not, some agencies have just unilaterally changed. So we wanted to try to be more inclusive of the decision making. Like when I reached out to Soul Trans, they're like, well, actually, we're just getting rid of them on July 1st. And I'm like, oh, thanks for telling me. Although it actually made the paperwork easier for us, but yeah.
So let me just, I have one more question. I think this probably relates to all of us. So then let me just think about the reverse then. If someone is coming from Golden Gate to City Bus, there's not gonna be, and they're using cash on Golden Gate, there's gonna be no mechanism for them to get a transfer to City Bus either?
So that would be up to the connecting operator technically, because we do still have transfers
That they can
within
bring.
our system.
Yeah.
So the transfer that's currently issued by the fare box, that will still exist. Is we're not getting rid of that internal.
And I think that's important for us to talk about. Maybe we can talk about it later, because I think we all need to stay as uniform. I mean, my concern is we have this unified reciprocal fare policy right now, and it kind of feels like it's starting to break apart a little bit potentially. And so if our systems can at least stay unified in our response to any change on Golden Gate's part, then I think.
Well, that's
We accept any of the transfers, for free on our service.
right.
Okay, sorry, I keep looking at you like you have fares.
Well, no, but I wanted to confirm, sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to confirm that you don't provide transfers either, so. A person.
Not anymore. We did,
So-
of course, for a while, you could, of course, transfer through Clipper, and we used to have paper punch transfers, but those are now gone.
So
So
there's
you're
not an option for them to get the first zone free on Sonoma County Transit.
Yes, the rider still pays the same amount, but instead of splitting it and we get a portion and then transfer, they pay the second half on your service. They just pay the entirety to Sonoma County under that scenario, rather than paying each agency doing the transfer. That makes sense. From the user perspective, they're still paying the same amount they would have.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Overall,
Hmm.
that makes sense.
I lost you, but that's okay.
Like,
Because they're not paying a fare on
Right.
Petaluma, right?
your inner city there, for example, from Petaluma to
Right,
Center.
right,
so it's not
gotcha.
much-
Yeah.
I get it,
Okay, yeah.
sorry,
But-
just took me a second.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, so it sounds like a little bit more discussion.
Yeah,
is
we can
probably
discuss
warranted,
more.
especially, thinking about if. I guess it's just for our systems, in terms of people transferring from Golden Gate to our systems, how would we treat that? So we'll chat more.
Yeah, and we're definitely open to discussion. It's just, it's been a huge thing for us to try to explain to our customers.
Yeah.
Luckily Sonoma County is consistent, so that's one of the easier things for us to
Yeah,
explain.
yeah.
Let's see, and then the last thing, just so that you know, so we've had some staffing changes. Mike Abag, who is our director of scheduling, is no longer with us. Jacob's not on the call today. He's still around, but Lauren, who is one of our grants analysts, she's taking a different position in our agency. She's going to be working in finance now, so we probably won't see her anymore, at least at these meetings. Although she was usually just the name on the screen anyway.
Is there a replacement for the director of scheduling, or is it
So
internal?
the position has been eliminated. What we're doing right now is we have a director of business operations for our bus division. He's the point person. And then I'm fielding a lot of more technical scheduling questions. Is what we've done is we got rid of the director position and the senior scheduler position, but we have a new principal scheduler position that's not filled yet. And so I'm kind of the planning equivalent as principal planner. And so a lot of those technical questions are coming to me, but it's really Hytham Hamden is the director of business operations. And he's the point person now. We do still have one scheduler.
I think we got one of your schedulers,
Oh, is that right?
Jason.
Gabe?
Yeah. He's
Okay.
with Transit now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he left pretty recently.
Yeah.
So we went from 4 to 1 schedulers in a span of 6.5 months.
Yikes.
So it's been brutal. Luckily, we have a CSCAD on retainer. I think that's a lot for me, so.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, thank you. That was all really helpful. So yeah, for us, Matt just got me our year-end ridership. So we cracked 1.4 million, which is great. We were happy about that. I think that's probably like a 9% year over year for the year. Just, I'm happy with that. I'm not going to be sad. It's not 22 or whatever, but yeah. Yeah, so that's good news, especially since we haven't been able to do anything with our service restoration for 3 years, so I'm gonna call it a win. We are still on track for the Transit Mall Roadbed project to start right after Labor Day. So we thought it was gonna be earlier in the summer, so we were in contact with Sonoma County and Golden Gate, and then it got pushed, and so now we're sort of revving back up, so there'll be some more outreach follow-up with all the agencies that serve the transit mall, just to get clarity about bus bays in the temporary transit mall and how we're managing the transition. So
So you think it'll be the week after Labor Day? Or
yeah,
before
like, well,
Labor Day?
yeah, right at it, we're supposed to start right after Labor Day. I don't want to swear to that right now, but we're under contract with the contractor, and everything is pointing to that staying on schedule. So I'll be confirming, but
How long is the construction supposed
it's
to
supposed to be 45 days. I
Oh,
mean,
that's
the
fine.
actual work is not that long. It's the curing.
Yeah.
Right.
They just have to
Yeah.
wait a certain number of days before we can drive big buses on it.
Is the work 7 days a week, 5 days?
Oh, I don't know. Oh, you mean is the 45 days? Is that business days or total? Is that what you're asking?
That's part of it, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's total days, but again,
Probably.
I gotta circle back with our capital projects manager and just confirm all these details for everyone, but
And Rachel,
yeah.
we in the Transit 2050 Plus meeting, they had said that there's going to be Plan Bay area outreach at the end of August, and so I had flagged with them that it was right around the time of the closure, but it sounds like
It might just squeak in.
it'll still be open, because
Yeah.
I think they were aiming for August 21st, so it sounds like it
Perfect.
should.
Yeah, we can't move the transit mall until after the Santa Rosa Marathon. So
Okay.
if it happens before the Santa Rosa Marathon, golden.
Got it.
So yeah, no, that should be fine. That should work really well, actually. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I believe Matt hasn't said anything different, but I think that what I'm hearing most recently is the wayfinding prototype signs would then be installed towards the end of that time. We're out of the transit mall, so when we move back in, the riders will be seeing the prototype signage, so that'll be a whole interesting experience as well. So it's quite different in the transit mall. I mean, it's gonna be a lot different. So it'll be interesting to get feedback and see how it goes. So I think that's all I've got for now. Okay, thanks.
All right, not much from Smart. Let's see, on the Marin County side, we had our another year of our special service for the Marin County Fair, running 2 northbound trips post fireworks up to Sonoma County for every of those 5 nights of the fair, and carried an additional 1,500 riders. That was really successful. Yeah, nice to have that. And of course, we recently launched that Larkspur shuttle to make that train ferry connection, which has been going very well. We're seeing really good ridership on that shuttle. And our June ridership finished at 20% over June 2023 and 144% over pre-COVID for monthly. So that's great. And we will also be adding 2 round trips for the August 12th service changes. We will not be doing any weekend service changes. They'll be changing on the 12th, that Monday. One of those trips will be in the morning, kind of filling in some of the gap, especially for people going to, for students going to school, as well as another trip kind of midday, filling in some of that midday service gap that we have.
My son's gonna be on that morning trip, so
Excellent.
thank you.
Of course, yeah. And yeah, I think that's about it.
Right, thank you. I'll give a brief update. I'm covering all the operators. I'll give a brief update on bike share program. We have sent out draft site plans for kind of the initial phase of rollout to all the agencies involved, and kind of received a thumbs up from a number of them so far. And once we get that kind of okay, then the team is starting to work on the permit applications. They're also working with agencies like SMART and Golden Gate Ferry and some university properties, college universities, on agreements that are different from the regular permitting process. So that's all happening right now. They're moving pretty quickly and ambitious to get this going. So as long as everything stays on schedule, you know, we are looking forward to getting our timeline down for launch pretty soon, but it all seems to be going pretty well. They've also hired a local operations manager who's now getting involved in all of the site planning work. And we let's see, we have a working group meeting this Thursday, which is tomorrow. And I think that's it. We have some kind of design, more refined branding with circulating, and will be applied to the bikes and website and the app.
Can you remind me, is the name finalized?
Yes, it is Redwood Bike Share.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And remind me, what did you mention what the timeline was for startup?
Yeah, so we don't have a public timeline yet,
Okay.
but I would say within the coming months. So
Months
months
with an S.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's good.
So
That's
yeah,
exciting.
it's exciting, and moving forward pretty quickly. You know, there's a possibility that there'll be a phase rollout if some of the jurisdictions are kind of lagging with the permitting processes, but if we get some, reasonable number of cities plus SMART approved, then we can do like the first phase launch. All right, so let's move on to other business comments and announcements. I'll just highlight that we will not have a August SCTA RCPA board meeting, so the next one is September 19th, or sorry, 9th. The next T-TAC meeting is August 14th. Any other comments or announcements? All right, thanks all. Do I have to do the?